All right, so welcome. Awesome. It's a big day. It's a day to finally actually install Nonprofit Success Pack. After how many times have we met now? 8. But we're ready to go. And you know me and Kathy. Kathy, of course, will be leading our lab on Thursday. And my recommendation today as we go through this would not be to try and do this simultaneously unless you're much better than I am. If you want to watch and absorb and make notes, and then hopefully it won't take too long after the fact to actually do this implementation if you haven't done it already. So today's focus, we're going to look at some technical requirements, right? A couple of different ways that you can do this. An important question of where do you install NPSP? Then we're going to actually install NPSP and set up the initial required configurations. So we'll see how quickly we can get that done through the process of today.
You're not sharing your screen.
Oh, thank you so much, Kathy, for telling me that. That's very helpful. Let's share my screen. There you go. So now you're seeing today's focus, right, in our 4 points. Technical requirements, where do you install NPSP? Let's install, and the initial required configurations. Okay. So the technical requirements. There are 2 tracks you can take to create a Salesforce instance with NPSP. The first one that you see on the left-hand side here is the salesforce.org trial. And just be aware, and I'll tell you why I wanted you to do the dev org instead, but the NPSP trial expires in 30 days, right? So you can put a ton of work in there. In 30 days, it's all gone unless you convert it to either the Power of Us, the free 10 licenses, because you're a .org organization, or pay for the licenses. So the trial is not always a good way to go just to test out and build out and work on things. It does have limitations, especially in regard to email functionality. While it's in trial, you can only send a very limited number, like 10, 15 emails a day out of that organization. The developer org is the second option. And don't be frightened. Don't be scared. I know it says developer, and y'all know that I am not a developer. But this is an org just like any other Salesforce org, except it's free. It doesn't expire. And it has some limitations too, again, mostly around email limitations. It may also have new features that you haven't gotten to play with yet, or paid features that are new that you haven't gotten to play with yet. So that's a consideration as well. Hopefully nothing that you build out requires those features, or you're going to have an additional cost. But just to know that that's what we want to look at. And I know some of you had trouble with the developer.salesforce.com getting those set up, but we'll look at that again at the end today to make sure that you've got what you need. So we are going to install, obviously, in a dev org, but if you're working with a customer or working in your own internal organization, where do you install Nonprofit Success Pack? I created a little flow chart to help us figure this out, okay? So the first question is, do you have an existing Salesforce instance? So most of you at work already do, and that's why you're here today. So if you do, then you need to check and see if you already have NPSP version 1 or version 2 installed. And if you do, then you need to create a sandbox and complete an upgrade of NPSP. If you don't have NPSP installed in any form, or you have the latest version, then create a sandbox and either install or use what you have there. The only time you really have to create a new Salesforce instance is if you don't have an existing Salesforce account. Obviously, you want to test everything in a sandbox because it's a completely different architecture if you don't have NPSP installed. Of course, we're not going to do any of these things. We're going to have a dev org where we can frolic and play and build and make mistakes and not disturb anybody, right? So let's install NPSP. Yay, fireworks. So I'm actually going to take down our fireworks. And if I can. Let's see if we can get past them. Okay. So we are going to use what's called Mateco. That's just the installation service for NPSP. But, oops, sorry. I told y'all it would get messy. I knew it would when we try to do this. Let's see if I can click it and get it together where I want it to. All right. So this, I want you all to see this. And this is the reason that I requested that you set up a dev org so you understand, and visualize what is actually happening from the NPSP installer, right? So we want to first, and I know it's tiny writing and you'll see this when you do it, to log in to start the pre-install validation. And this is where you're either doing it in a production or developer org, in this case, a developer org, or you can choose a sandbox or a scratch org. So we're going to do it in a developer org that I thought I was already signed into, and I'm not. But it should actually open a sign-in, right? So you log in, and in this case, my developer org is NPSP class. Connect.org is my username. And my password. And here are all those scary things that are asking you, should we allow access, right? Salesforce wants to know, do you want, these are all the things that this has to have access to. And you might just take the time to read them sometime. Everybody just clicks and goes on. But to know that you're accessing the identity URL service, you're managing user data via APIs. Some of you who may be more familiar, more technical may recognize some of these things. It's always interesting to me, the visual force applications, the analytics REST API resources, the REST API charts, geodata resources. I mean, just tons of fascinating things. Manage Pardot services, even though we don't have Pardot, right? So yes, we're going to allow this. And let's see, there it goes. Sharing my screen makes it a little bit slower. So it's doing the pre-install validation, which one of the things that that we have to have my domain turned on, which it already is in any new site you spin up. And also have to have, that was quick. So the pre-install validation completed successfully. Great, right? We are ready to go. You see, this is our developer edition. So we are going to install, and you see all these different parts and pieces of the nonprofit success pack, right? And of course, let's check that we approve the product terms of use and licenses. And so this installation is going to begin. And it says the average install time is 15 minutes. And that's probably true. And if I can figure out how to get us out of this screen, we'll go to one that I've already got set up so we can get started on the second part of this. So Once that installation completes, you're going to get a screen that looks like this. Have you seen this before? This is an incredibly helpful tool for us in getting things set up. But the initial parts and pieces that we really need to do here are not in this pretty part so much. We want to actually get in and do the initial required configurations. So I'm going to see if I can split my screen here a little bit and show you. You see this one is still installing, right? So that's fine. We'll leave it, let it go there. And we'll go back to our slide deck. And I don't know about you all, but I am a list maker. I love nothing better than just to tick things off the list. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. So I apologize in advance that it really is so much writing on this slide, but it's the best way I know to do it to make sure that you get through all the specific steps that need to be set up before you start doing anything, right? So my domain, we talked about, make sure it's an enterprise edition of Salesforce, not a professional edition, not an essentials edition. Make sure it is definitely a enterprise edition of Salesforce. And then we'll get started, right? So the permissions configurations. We actually need to go into setup. 1 second. Make sure I've got my notes together here. Okay. So we go to setup. And as a Salesforce administrator, you're probably already familiar with a lot of this, and this is just kind of giving you a shortcut list to be able to do this. So in profiles, in system permissions, right, for each of the profiles that are going to be using Nonprofit Success Pack. In this case, I'm the system administrator, so we want to make sure that we've got this set up appropriately, right? We want to, excuse me, go to the system permissions and make sure that author Apex, you see author Apex, that tick box is enabled for the users. We want to make sure that customize application is ticked. It is here. And that modify all data for the system administrator. Definitely, not necessarily for anyone else, because that gives them delete power, right? So you can be sure that your system administrator will need delete power, but you don't necessarily want anyone else to have delete power. Just be aware that that does do some interesting things there, right? So the next thing, once you've confirmed that that's all there for the appropriate profiles, we need to go to the required configurations around organization and account record types, right? So we go to Object Manager and Account and Record Types, and the household account and the organization record types are both there, right? So we go back and look at the profiles that are using NPSP, and you want to make sure that the organization record type that's the default for the NPSP users is set to organization. So account settings for this profile. are household and organization, and the default is organization. Because the household account is created automatically by NPSP when a contact is entered without being associated to a specific account. So it creates a household. Okay. So then page layouts, which are always exciting, right? Go back to Object Manager. In this case, we're just looking at accounts. But the page layouts, there are several different options here for the page layouts. And based on what you are doing, you may even want to clone one of those and create an additional layout. So the organization lightning layout, for example, obviously, if you're going to assign this one to your staff, you don't want to be able to delete records. You might remove the delete button. You can edit these and create them appropriately, but to be sure that they're available, because they are going to already have built into them the donation tools, information, grant making. You can hide, any and all of these that you may need to as we go into the next chapters and set things up for fundraising. But these created page layouts that come with Nonprofit Success Pack have a pretty good basis to start from. So they're kind of like the big yummy bowl of ice cream before you add all of the delicious toppings and syrups and fruit and nuts. Okay. Those are available on account, on opportunity, on contact, and on campaign objects. So you want to check and make sure that you have whatever you need there for your specific use case. Okay. All right. Part 2. But wait, there's more, right? To get all this set up to start. Since we're on the accounts page, let's go to the buttons, links, and actions. And we want to confirm that the view button is here, right? You can edit it here, but this is the one that's going to be on your page to click. Going to be slow. No override necessarily that you need, right? But it's there. The edit button, the same. Edit button is a standard page. What you see there. The other important button that you may have to add is the Manage Household button. And it's actually a visual force page. You want to make sure that it is there, that it's enabled, that you can see it's part of actually the managed package itself. And obviously it's on the page layouts for household standard and the household lightning layout, right? But it is a detail page button, so that know that you've got this and have it available to add to your page layouts as needed for folks to use. One interesting button that, again, just these basic standard updates, things you want to check, because depending on what level of NPSP you have, it may already be in there. On all the new organizations that you spin up, it should be there. But you're not always working with brand new. Sometimes we have to go back and, reinvent the wheel. And when you do that, you want to make sure that you at least check all of these, right? So in the lead object, the lead, and I want to say it's lead override. Let's see, convert. It's the convert button. that we want to make sure is set to the LD lead convert override for the visual force page, right? If you look at this, maybe a while since you've done some of this, but for Salesforce Classic, using that visual force page override. You also want to check based on how you're using your system and make sure that it's not causing any conflicts anywhere else, right? Because leads are generally not a big part of nonprofit use cases. However, I think that's a mistake. I think leads are there are a lot of great use cases for nonprofits to use leads, but someone may have already built something in the system that contradicts this, and because it's a visual force page. So you may have situations there that you want to address. The contact delete button. So again, go to contact. A lot of this is just skipping around, making sure that we've got all the right things in. All right, buttons, links, and actions. Yeah, this is why they pay us the big bucks, right, to follow a list and get it all set up. But again, it's a visual force page, right? That's an override. And the challenge here is if you don't have this particular content source set this way, you can actually delete the last contact in a household and leave an empty household, which is worthless, right? In my book, it ranks right up there with Steve Moe's multi-pick list, and killing seals. So let's not kill any llamas by leaving empty households with nobody in them, right? And then finally, we can go back to the little waffle and go to NPSP settings. So you see there are a lot of things, getting started with NPSP, getting started with NPSP admin, import batches, data imports, but the settings is the standard page that we've all used forever and ever and ever, it seems like anyway. Take just a minute here and take a look at your relationship settings. If you're not going to use these, don't worry about it. But if it's better to set it up now and not need it than not set it up now and need it later. Relationship settings are one of the very few ways that you can express contact-to-contact relationships. And of course, this is important in a nonprofit, from a family standpoint, from a household standpoint. There it goes, so slow. So you really want to take a look at these and at least make sure that it's there so that you can, excuse me, can start working with it, right? So here's your relationships tab. Relationships. What's your reciprocal method going to be? What is your setting going to look like? Are you going to use a gender field? Word on the street is that 2020, the spring 2023 release is going to have a gender field as a standard field in Salesforce, which is great. So several fields here that you want to think about on how you set those up. Those don't have to be done initially. But here are the reciprocal relationships that come already installed in NPSP. If you have additional reciprocal relationships that you want to put in there, and I don't know what they might be because this is a pretty extensive list, but check it out and see if there are other relationships. And remember, contact to contact. There are other ways that you connect contacts to accounts and that you attach contacts to accounts, and you can attach accounts to accounts. So just to know that is there, that if there are ones that you don't want to use, you can delete them. If there are ones you need to add, you can. And those are actually the required configurations that you need to set up in Nonprofit Success Pack to be able to get started. So that's the preliminary work, right? One of the goals of this class is actually to create a solution using Nonprofit Cloud. So now is a good time to really start narrowing down what you want that to be. It doesn't have to be a huge solution. It can be something very simple. But using everything we've learned so far, you may want to install the program management module or volunteers for Salesforce or outbound funds. All of those things are installed in exactly the same way. And in the notes and documentation, we've got things, information for you to be able to install those if you want. So you may want to create a digital experience or use another external portal builder. Just start thinking about what you want to do and how you want to use Nonprofit Success Pack. Probably the reason you came to this class. You had a problem that you wanted to solve. So let's start thinking about how we want to solve that problem. And that's why you'll probably want to come more to some one-on-one lab experiences, or come to the lab and get some more one-on-one instruction on how to actually move forward with what we're doing. Next week, we are going to do a deep dive into actually configuring Nonprofit Success Pack for fundraising purposes. So there's an entire chapter devoted in my book to setting it up for fundraising, because there are so many different options that you have available to be able to do that. And so, again, be thinking on what you want your solution that you're going to share with us at the end of the class is going to need. And we will feel free to submit questions in our Slack channel. And next week we will get started with those actual fundraising pieces. Homework. Thank you so much for always putting that in there for us, Kathy. The additional resources and office hours Thursday, January 26th at 1:30. The video replay, hopefully will be up faster than it was last week. It's hard to download it and upload it in all the right places on a mobile. Anything else, Kathy, that I'm forgetting that?
Oh, I just wanted to point out the mapping programs and services to PMM. If you just click, when you get the slides, if you just click on the link, for some reason it doesn't work. So you need to like right click, like you're going to edit it, and then copy the link and paste it somewhere to get it to work. I'll actually add the link in. I'll actually add the URL in as well. For some reason, like I said, for some reason, the link doesn't want to work.
Right.
So, because it automatically downloads the PowerPoint, because it is a PowerPoint, that one.
Right. All right. Thank you for your time today. I'm going to stop the recording.